Today is Friday, March 21st, and we're going to do a deep dive on the Dallas Cowboys with their beat reporter for years and years, David Moore. He's next on Just Wondering.
And now, a word from our title sponsor.
Eyeing retirement? Let us show you how to turn your nest egg into a paycheck with half the amount you've been led to believe. Fluent Financial combines in-house portfolio design and risk management with income-generating investments designed to accelerate your financial independence. Let us develop an effective portfolio strategy that works for you so you can retire sooner and have a better lifestyle. Fluent Financial can also implement a program that allows business owners to install a cash balance plan, which is designed to help drastically reduce income tax payments. You've worked hard to become successful. Let us develop an effective portfolio strategy that works for you. Learn more today about Fluent Financial. Retire sooner, better lifestyle. For more information or to schedule a meeting, visit fluentfinancial.com or call 972-852-4800.
You've seen David Moore's byline for decades in the Dallas Morning News. He's been the Cowboys beat reporter for Lord knows how many years. But he hasn't been the beat reporter for them being in the NFC Championship game. And the Cowboys have decided David Moore is simply the bad luck that's been costing them all these years. Hi, buddy.
There is a correlation. And I will say, most people do say, good Lord, how long have you been doing this?
By the way,
usually after they read one of my stories, but yeah.
There's a correlation to some other people in the organization, but we won't get into
it. Maybe.
Many of the questions I'm going to ask you actually should be directed to Stephen and Jerry. But since they're not here...
You think I'll be more forthcoming? Would you like
yes,
my answers better, do you think?
You get tasked with answering the questions. Dallas has been much more active in free agency this offseason than last year. They made 2 trades. They signed 8 free agents. But David, I'm a little bit mystified by what they're doing. They seem to be signing mostly spares. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and this is the most active they've been. Technically, it is 8 free agents at this period, but as you said, they executed 2 trades, which in my mind, I tie into this period. So that's 10. And that's the most they've had since like 1990. And that was under Plan B free agency. And going back that far, they had 16 that year. For people who don't remember, that was a 3 to 4 year period where NFL teams got to freeze 37 players on their roster, and everyone else who they didn't protect was available in free agency. That's why you had a lot more movement. That stopped, I believe, in like 92. Since then, the 8 Dallas has signed to this point equals the high that they ever have in this first phase of free agency. But I'm like you. Now let's go to Vegas and put the over-under on how many of these 10 players are going to be on the opening day roster. I think you should probably put that around 6.5. You're better at this than I am, Norm.
Well, I think an over and under of 6.5 is pretty solid.
Yeah. And now I think there are a couple of players in this group that should start. I think Murray, the linebacker they got, who started his career with the Chargers, played Tennessee this past year, Kenneth Murray. I believe he will come in and start. At this moment, Kyer, Elam, Wood. Now, I would say that's just because Trayvon Diggs won't be ready for the season. Jordan Lewis has moved on, and you haven't had the draft yet where I'm convinced the Cowboys will take a corner that will compete for a starting spot, at least initially, before Trayvon Diggs comes back. But yeah, you get past that. I think Robert Jones has a chance to compete for that right guard spot on the interior. But you get beyond those 3 players, I don't think that you've added anyone during this phase that you say, yes, they're going to step in and start for us and be a reliable key guy throughout this season.
You know, Dallas seems to have have arrived at a theory. Peyton Turner, whom they signed, is a former number one draft choice. Elam, who they acquired, a former number one draft choice. Murray, the same thing. Paris Campbell was a 2, I believe.
2, yep.
Javonte Williams was a 2. What's the theory behind trying to rehabilitate all these players who, quite honestly, have pretty much failed in the places they started?
Yeah, I believe the philosophy is that the talent is there, but the production did not fit the expectations. And I do think that there's a belief that, you know what, no one's going to view them as a first-round pick in Dallas. They were brought in on free agency, one-year deals. And again, here's the other thing. 9 of the 10 players that have been brought in from the outside are all in the final year of their deals. Mm-hmm. The only person with a 2-year deal is Solomon Thomas. So another first-round pick. So I think the feeling is you remove some of those expectations and the weight of and baggage of what they didn't accomplish in their first spot, where the expectations were so high that the second stop, or in some of the cases, the third stop in Murray's case, will be a little more amenable for them to have success and for everyone's expectations to be geared around who this player is, not what they could be. All of that being said, I will say that in the case of Elam, and this is anecdotal on my part, but I rarely see a first-round corner who doesn't hit who goes on to have a solid career elsewhere. And I think that's because of the temperament and the mentality that's needed at that position. And I'm struck consistently. You look at Pro Bowls year in, year out, there are a lot of 4th and 5th round corners who are Pro Bowl players. Mm-hmm. To me, it speaks to just the mentality and how you handle defeat when you're constantly defeated in that position. And if you don't do it as a first-round pick, I don't know that going to a different spot is going to help you.
David, these 10 have arrived, but gone. Forget DeMarcus Lawrence. He was always going to be gone after this season.
Yeah.
But Courtney Lewis is gone, and Eric Dowdle's gone, Chauncey Golston's gone, Chuma Edoga's gone, Cooper Rush is gone. Right now, are the Cowboys any better than they were last year?
No. I think their depth is better spread out across the board. I don't think there are some threadbare positions that the depth is not there as much as we saw during this season. But as far as a talent upgrade, no. And to me, their strategy was, I know a lot of people disagree with it. I do think they wanted to cover all of these positions so they could draft as purely round in and round out in April as they would like. An example very quickly, they took 2 linebackers I think who will be part of the rotation this year and help them in free agency. If they hadn't taken those 2 linebackers, I think there's a good chance on day 2 they would have been sitting there in the 2nd or 3rd round going, yeah, but boy, we don't have a linebacker. We need to take a linebacker here instead of this receiver, even though we have the receiver ranked a little higher, or a running back here who we want to take because we just have to have that position. So I think they helped themselves in the first 2 days of the draft to just those first 3 rounds to take the best player available. I think that's a lot of what this offseason was about to this point.
David, they signed Javonte Williams and will pay him $3.5 million.
Yeah.
And Miles Sanders and will pay him $1.3 million. I'm puzzled by something. What did they not like about Dowdle, who went to Carolina on a 1-year, $6.5 million contract to an effect that appears to me be a backup to Chuba Hubbard?
Yeah, he will be a backup there. They were hoping to sign Dowdle, is my understanding, in free agency with the idea, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but with Williams and Sanders, this doesn't impact. Dallas will come out of the first 2 days of this draft with a running back. To me, that is not even debatable. The organization has already made that determination. The question is whether it's going to be on the first night of the draft or the second night. That is the only question when a running back is taken for them in this draft. It will happen. They're not looking at this combo to lead them into next season. That being said, they like Dowdle a lot. I think they viewed him as a guy who's coming off a career year, but is he a one-hit wonder? I think their view of him still as a complimentary back is in place. I think that was borne out by what you saw him get in the marketplace. So now we go back to what your initial question was. You let him walk for essentially the same contract because your personnel assessment is that Williams, the overall package, while he may not be as good of a runner, his ability out of the backfield as a receiver, his ability in pass protection, his ability in short yardage situations, which I think Dowdle was not very good in consistently. My belief is they actually had, and I've had indications that they had Williams rated as a better player on their system. I know a lot of people disagree with that, but I believe that's why that move happened.
The draft is going to be so critical of this team. So I'm going to take you to the last two drafts. First, Mozzie Smith. Don't the Cowboys have to find somebody to replace him to make him at least a backup at best?
I think so. If you're really, if you're serious about improving your run defense and upgrading your talent in the defensive line, yeah, from what we've seen these first 2 years, he seems best suited to be a rotational piece versus a starter and an anchor in that defensive front.
Let me go to last year's number one, Tyler Guyton, the offensive tackle. He did not show very much last year. There were problems with Guyton. If the Cowboys get a chance, will they draft a left tackle and move Guyton to either guard or rotational backup tackle?
The feeling I get from them is that they don't believe there will be a tackle at 12 that would dictate them doing that. The new offensive line position coach believes that likes Guyton, what he sees of him at left tackle. Schottenheimer has made the same indications. I believe they've talked through that scenario, and they're going to give Guyton another year at left tackle to see how it goes.
For more than 3 decades, Bob's Steak and Chop House has remained an icon of DFW restaurants. Why? Well, maybe it's because of Bob. He's fanatical about cleanliness and friendliness, and his food, oh my Lord, his food. If you've been there, you know about it. If you haven't been there, you should know about it. The original Bob welcomes you at either of his 2 locations, Bob's on Lemon Avenue or the sparkling new Bob's at Craig Ranch, McKinney.
Are you struggling to cook healthy meals that actually taste good? Not sure what seasonings go together to make your food pop? Well, let's be honest. You need something quick and easy for your busy schedule, and OPA, OPA, OPA has you covered. Introducing OPA seasonings. Mary just loves them on meat, fish, chicken, veggies, salads. Just sprinkle, enjoy, and you will love OPA. You get it easily. You go to the website, opafoods.com, OPA foods.com. Use the promo NORM and you get 10% off your order. And here's the best part. A portion of every purchase goes to the Austin Street Shelter for the Homeless, helping those in need while you enjoy great food. Delicious meals, a great cause, and savings. What's not to love? Try OPA today.
Here's something that's bothered me now for a couple of years. The Cowboys drafted Tyler Smith to be the replacement for Tyron Smith as left tackle. Left tackle was a problem spot last year. Why isn't the club just moving Tyler Smith, who's still very young, out to left tackle and say that position's now solid for the next 10 years?
I've asked these questions pointedly over the last several months. And I've been told consistently that remember, there was just a guy who had a retirement ceremony here not long ago who was viewed in the same way, right? Zach Martin, that he was going to be the tackle of the future, but let's just play him at guard this 1 year, and then we'll move him out and get him in his spot and go from there. He was so dominant once he went in the interior, they went, okay, let's rethink this. The exact same thing has happened with Tyler Smith. They viewed him as the left tackle of the future. He stepped in as a rookie and did it. And see, I think this was another, I think this is an example of them hitting and projecting Tyler Guyton to do the same thing that Tyler Smith did. You know, they were taken in comparable spots of the draft. Both of them, the word was, well, this is kind of the second tier of tackles. They could develop, you know, they should develop into a very good starter, but they're not ready to plug in and play. It's going to take a little development time. Tyler Smith looked so good at left tackle as a rookie, even when he spent all the offseason program in camp at guard, that I think when they got to Tyler Guyton last year, they went, hey, we see some similar qualities and traits. In fact, one of them was in college. Both of them had a lot of holding penalties, right? But it's like, you know, we didn't see that. This guy, we hit with Tyler Smith. We like a lot about Tyler Guyton. We can do it again here. And Tyler Guyton wasn't ready to step up in year one the way Tyler Smith did. But I think they're willing to give him one more year and go from there with it.
I wonder if Dak Prescott supports that, but that's a question we'll move on from. I'm going to make a statement. I look at every position group on this team other than tight end, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line. I still think linebacker and defensive backfield. You can make a case for drafting a player at every one of those position groups. No question.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, and like you say, in the offensive line, the tackles and the guards. I think with Robert Jones and what you saw with Hoffman and Bass and TJ Smith in there, you can't, if you make an acknowledgement in a salary cap world, you can't cover every position the way you ideally would like. I think you could probably, and with BB at center, I think you can make the argument that, okay, the interior of the offensive line is one spot where you don't have to go. But to me, that only broadens it to two, right? That's tied in the interior of the offensive line. Yeah. Everywhere else, you could clearly upgrade in this draft. I agree with you completely. And here, I will say overall, while I think they have decent depth at receiver, what there is a crying need for is a true second receiver to complement CD Lamb. I think they have a lot of good 3, 4, and 5 receivers, but there is not a number 2 receiver on this roster to CD Lamb.
Well, they've signed Paris Campbell. They used a 3 to draft Jalen Tolbert, a 4 to acquire Jonathan Mingo, a 6 on Ryan Flournoy, and a 7 on Jalen Brooks. And they still don't have a number 2. That's not a good record.
No, and there are a couple of veterans out there who would fit that. If you could get them on a 1-year contract for the $6 to $7 million, I could see that. But you know, here's the other thing: a lot of people focus on running back in the first round. One, I know a lot of people penciled Genty into 12. I don't think he gets to 12. I think there are enough teams right ahead of him, and he is clearly the top back to where. I just go back through the years. Whenever you start penciling a player in outside of the top 10 to a certain team, he rarely ever gets that far. He usually winds up going earlier than that. So I don't think Genty's going to be there. And but you could have no wide receivers taken at that spot, or only one. And I think that position's in play for Dallas as well.
Yeah, there's a chance Genty goes to the Raiders at 6 or the Bears at 10.
Yeah. I don't see him getting past both. I really don't.
I don't either. The Cowboys have created some money. The Cowboys have become infamous for, in my mind, waiting too long on contracts. They waited too long on Dak and Lamb, and they're probably in the process of waiting too long on Parsons. Might the Cowboys use some of this money they've created to step a year ahead and sign next year's free agents like Deron Bland or Jake Ferguson or even potentially Sam Williams?
Oh, I think they would like to do that. I would put Williams, you put him at the end of your list. I think they would too, just because he missed all of last year. You want to actually see how he handles the load as a starter, and not just physically, but mentally, if he's going to handle that position. But I think Bland, yeah, and Ferguson too. Both of those guys are in the future. And remember, when everyone was going, you're waiting on CD Lamb, and there are a lot of factors there. They waited too long. I will also say CD Lamb and his representation slow played it because they wanted to see what was happening in the market, especially with Jefferson. But remember what Dallas did the year before. They jumped out and they signed Trayvon Diggs, and they got Terrence Steele. They got them to extensions. I think you will see the same thing this offseason. I don't think it will just be Micah Parsons that signed before the season begins. I think out of Bland and Ferguson, they need to sign at least one of those players along with Parsons going into the season.
We all saw Philadelphia win the Super Bowl. And in my mind, I mean, there were loads of wonderful players on Philadelphia. But their offensive and defensive line shoved opponents around this season.
No question. Yeah.
If we're looking at the draft, shouldn't the Cowboys think if we're going to compete, we've got to compete at the line of scrimmage in the types of players they take?
I think there is a strong discussion on that. And I would tell you, there's a chance either I don't think the highest rated defensive tackle will be there at 12, but I think the number 2 and the number 3 guy both could be there. And I don't think there's much separation there from talking to people. It's going to be a preference thing. So I think a defensive tackle would be there for them. That being said, when they just spent the money they did on Odigizua, when Solomon Thomas comes in and he's the 2-year deal when everyone else is getting 1 year, and the fact that 2 years ago they used a first-round pick on the position, I think it would be a dramatic departure for them to go defensive tackle at 12. So I don't think they will do it there, but I would not be surprised to see them come back on the second day and address the interior of the defensive line at all. Now, that's a big drop, though, from what you get up there at 12, but
Yes.
But it would also be higher in general than what they have done in the past. Normally, before Mozzie Smith, when were they taking their defensive tackles? 6th and 7th round.
Yes. David, who's the general manager of the Cowboys? Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, or Will McClay?
92 to 95% of the time, Stephen Jones. Jerry Jones whenever he wants. Defer greatly, and Will McClay's voice does carry sway with both of those men. But I would break it down. I would say 95 Stephen, 5% Jerry.
Well, that brings me to my final point with you. Our thanks. Keep up the good work. And let us know if we can start building support for David Moore for the general manager of the Cowboys.
I don't believe anyone at the Star will buy into that movement, but sure, I'll be happy to help start it.
Well, hey, I'll be happy to jump on board, buddy. Hey, thanks for your time today, David. Look forward to talking and look forward to working with you in that same room at the Star
right.
on the NFL draft on the ticket.
It's only about 5 weeks away, right? It's coming up quick.
Yes, it is. Be well, my friend.
You too. Thanks, Norm.
Today's episode brought to you by Fluent Financial, Retire Sooner, Better Lifestyle, and by Bob's Steak and Chop House.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Just Wondering with Norm Hitzges. If you enjoyed what you heard, please hit follow, and a fresh new episode will be delivered to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And if you know someone who might enjoy our work, please share it with them. I'm Norm Hitzges, and I'm always just wondering about something.
And I'm Mary Hitchcock.